This is Magical Moments, hosted by your favorite holistic wellness practitioner, Carla Reeves. Started with gratitude, ended with love. Magical moments are waiting for us. You can be next if you heal up your trauma. Carla gonna tell you what you need to follow. Locking, we getting you ready. Setting intentions and taking the heavy thoughts that been holding you down. This is the show that you'll be glad you found. Come get your magical moment.
Hello and welcome back to Magical Moments. I am here with Natalia, owner, founder, heart behind Oasis Journey. I met Natalia online, actually, on Facebook, and we just really clicked. I love her spirit. I love her energy. So I did ask her to be a part of the podcast. I was on her podcast, absolutely loved it. I was like, let's keep the conversation going. Her episode was all about my journey, so I want to know all about her journey and just everything she has going on. So Natalia, hop on in, introduce yourself. How are you?
I'm doing well, Carla. Thank you so much for asking me to be on your show. It's a real honor, and I'm very excited to get to spend some more time with you.
This is going to be an amazing episode. I can just feel it.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah, so tell everyone all that you do, all about Oasis Journey and how that came to be.
Got you. Well, there's a lot that I do, like yourself. So by day, I am a cosmetologist. I'm a hairdresser. I have been in the hairdressing world for 20 plus years now, and it is a beautiful space. It's ever changing, and I'm still growing in it. I'm forever a student in it. I'm veteran, but a student.
Yeah, I get you.
Um, and I took a break a couple of years ago after I moved down here to be with my now wife, and just thought I was done. But I will just say that for most of my life, I knew I was very different, and it wasn't just centered in my sexuality. It was how I was in childhood. I could see things as a kid, on people. I could sense things. Um, and the way I grew up, it didn't give much room for that to evolve because I had a very, very, very rigid religious upbringing. So, like I can remember my mother having company, and sometimes I would stay in the mix. And then there would be times where I would retreat to my room. And later my mother would be like, "What was that?" And I was just like, I don't know. It's just something didn't feel right. And I didn't understand then how that would evolve later in life for me. Um, I'll just kind of real quick give you the cliff notes, and I'm gonna issue some trigger warnings too for people who listen to this. But I spent a lot of time uh, in church. I grew up Jehovah's Witness. I evolved into the Pentecostal and charismatic part of the Christian church, and just knew something was different. I knew there was more. I knew there was something else tugging and pulling on me, even after walking through those arenas within Christianity. And long story short, I remember very, very clearly one day I got a visitation. I was pumping gas at my car, and literally it was one of those moments, Carla, where like that somebody visited you and it wasn't in this life. Okay, because of how quickly they showed up, how quickly they disappeared, and you could not see them.
Yep.
Okay, you
Yep.
understand?
You know,
And
I know.
yeah, and I was recalling this as I was preparing to talk to you, and I remembered this vividly. I was just pumping gas, and there was a lot going on in my life. And all of a sudden, literally, I turned around and there was this woman there, and creeped me out, but also kind of felt like, just hold on a minute, just wait a second. And she looked at me and she said, "Listen, if you give me $10, I'm going to tell you everything what's going on in your life, and I'm going to tell you what's going on in your future."
Wow.
And I was kind of, most typical people would be like, "Girl, no, get out of here." But
Right.
I was open to it. And she began to vividly describe intimate details that nobody would have known of my life and what I was going through at the time. And then she began to speak about my gift. And she said, what I'm doing, you're going to be able to do it because it's in you and you can see things. And she began to tell me, you've been seeing things since you were a child. And everybody has tried to squash that out of you. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to walk in it, and you're going to walk in it in a very large way, in a way that you never thought you would. You're not crazy. Everything that you're seeing is on point. She talked about a deceased family member of mine, spoke of them very vividly, and I was just kind of like, wow, okay, I was kind of really taken back. Literally, gave her the $10. Have a nice day. Went to take the pump out of my car, put it back on the nozzle, turned around, that woman was gone. Like, you know how you look around and
Mhm.
you're trying to see somebody still walking? I couldn't see her anymore. And after that, it just began to be a series of things. People would come to me and talk about my light and ask me my sign. And then I linked up with a psychic medium that I went to grade school with. It was really interesting. We figured out we went to the same school. And so life in the spirit realm really, really began to open up for me. And so I'll fast forward. Um, I knew a long time ago that I was supposed to enter into the spiritual, what do you call it? I lost my train of thought for a second, but the healing arts. I knew that I was supposed to do that, and I didn't know what it was looking like. So, got a spiritual mentor, left a really big beauty corporate job at, right before the end of 2024, and launched Oasis LLC, Oasis Journey LLC. And my mentor was just like, it's there. You just have to believe it's there. And so I took that big leap. I had already started with crystals. I had learned Reiki, mastered it, was introduced to sound healing, various forms of sound healing, the sound bowls, the tuning forks, just different things. But crystals were a huge thing for me because I would walk into a metaphysical store and I would feel them. I would feel the vibration. And it was so weird at first. And then if there was a particular stone that called to me, that wanted me to learn about it and take it home with me, the vibration would be really intense when I went to where that stone was. And so I began to study them, use them for myself, use them in my practice. And I have just been on this journey of growing that, learning more about it. I have also been training for becoming a shaman. That was something that it was a little bit kind of like jumping off the cliff for me. But it really, there's a lot that I have been learning as far as the rituals and things associated with that. And I'm just in this space of feeling and knowing this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to be giving back into the world. And also giving people access to understanding it and doing it themselves
Yes.
because it's so, I'm sure you've seen this in the healer world. You get people who get, for lack of a better term, they get codependent on you.
Hmm.
And you want them to understand it for themselves and be able to take what you lead them to and show them to, but also bring it into their life and start to use it because it's there. It's not a hierarchy. Like I'll just say how things are set up in the world. There's no
Right.
hierarchy with this. Spirit is very open if you're open to it. So that's just a little snippet of what
I
I'm doing
love
now.
that. And there's so many things that I just want to go back to.
Mhm.
Um, but definitely I love that you said things are there if you're open to it. And I think that's one of the main things that people that it's like holding people back. They're not
Mhm.
open.
Mhm.
And I think it ties into, and this is just my belief. I think it ties into, their upbringing. So I want to go back to the religious
Yeah.
upbringing. Because if you're religious, everything has to fit in a nice little box. Everything has to be a label. And if it's not this, then it's bad. Everything is very black and white. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally feel if you view the world as black and white, good or bad, everything is, evil. If it's not within the church, within the teachings, within, the Bible, and even sometimes I'll get off my soapbox. But if it's not within that, then it's evil, it's witchcraft, it's whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
they're not open to receiving. So,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I want you to go back a little bit to you said you were a Jehovah's Witness for a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went to being Pentecostal. So, what
Mm-hmm.
was that shift like? And what did you notice, like, being in two very different religions?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Speak a little bit on that.
So, growing up Jehovah's Witness, you described the religion very vividly. You just said it's a box and it's good and evil, it's black or white. And I was in that mentality for a long time. Growing up Jehovah's Witness, you wouldn't dare associate, talk to, visit a church, period, outside of the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's one of their tenets, especially a Pentecostal church, because they did not believe in the gift of speaking in tongues or anything like that. They thought it was evil. So I want to tell you that first of how closeted that is, just
Wow.
growing up in that. And my dad was very, very, still is that I know of, very involved, kind of like high up. There's a lot given to men versus women in that organization. That's very much at play. And then going from the Jehovah's Witnesses and knowing very young, I'm like, wait a minute now, this is there's more than this because I remember feeling suppressed and caged in it as a child. And I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I remember him saying to me, "What if we grow up and we figure this is all a bunch of crap that we've been giving our life to?" And I said, I just hope that the day that, and if that happens, that day that we go, wow, what are we supposed to be doing now? And we be open to whatever door opens. So
Not you
jumping,
prophesizing as a child.
right? I remember saying that to him vividly. I was like, I hope we're open to whatever is before us. And so in between that, I went searching, Carla. I went to a Catholic church, got very involved in the Catholic Church until I wanted to get married, and they gave me like a packet that was this thick, and they wanted me to fill out all this paperwork in order to get married under their tenets and things. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same thing. It's just wrapped in a different box. Okay, next. And so I went searching, did that, learned a little bit about humanism, Buddhism, just kind of dibbled and dabbled a little bit. And then I ended up in the church. Now, I will say this. I do believe I had a divine encounter with the divine when I got to the church. And the reason why I say that is because there were things that happened to me and that I witnessed with my own two eyes that I can tell you, I know that was God. Okay, so I'm not going to sit up here and say that God doesn't exist. I seen a lot that proved the existence of God. But the one thing that I seen that was consistent was the word love. I seen it, I experienced it, I was able to touch it. I know it to be true. And the presentation I think that is given of who God is now, I think they really need to go back and really rethink that. Let me get off that soapbox. So I get into the Pentecostal church and did ministry. I mean, we did the whole 9 yards. We did the street ministry, laying hands on people, praying, prophesying. I was known as a seer in the church. So, we talked about my childhood gift, and that played out in the church. And it was very, very different than what I was raised in. And there was kind of a little bit of what seemed to be a little bit more freedom because there was dance, there was celebration. There was a lot of people who could speak and say hallelujah and amen behind the preacher, agreeing with the preacher or prayer. You couldn't do that in the Kingdom Hall. It was very quiet and you just listened and then maybe you clapped at the end. It was just different. And I thought even then I found, okay, this is where God is. This is where God is until I got sick. And when I got sick, things changed because I wasn't this vibrant, prophesying, seeing, praying, intercessor, doing ministry anymore. I had to get somewhere and lay down to the point where I couldn't walk for a while because came down with Lyme's disease. I seen a different version of the church during that time. And I started to realize more and more and more in that time of solidarity and isolation. I didn't need that building
Mm.
to have relationship because the relationship, the communion was there, but it was there a long time ago, if that makes sense. So I ended up walking away from that as well. And one of the things, and I think you and I talked about this in when we recorded on my podcast, acupuncture was one of the healing modalities that was introduced to me when I was bedridden, and it helped me to walk again. And I was cautioned not to do acupuncture because it was going to open doors, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to invite anything into my life. Um, I can walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's invite health back into your life. Let's
Yeah,
invite walking again back into your life.
right.
Yeah.
And being open to however we talk about healing, right? And being healers, being open to whatever is put before you
Mm-hmm.
to achieve that. And it was an eye opener. And my acupuncturist was the one that introduced me to Reiki.
Yeah.
So it really it was an eye opener, Carla.
Yeah. And it put you on the path that you were meant to be on.
Yes.
Absolutely. It bothers me that, and it causes a lot of religious trauma for most
Hmm.
people, that they can be, again, so black and white, so closed off to certain things just because they don't understand it. And instead of learning about it and getting to know it, it's automatically, nope, that does not fall within this nice little neat
Hmm.
box of, Christianity or whatever. And
Hmm.
it's witchcraft and we can't do that.
Yeah. And when you're saying that, it's you're passing judgment. And you'll house it in this language of religion and call it love. And it's not that. I don't care what you say. It's not. One of the things I say all the time, your life has purpose. You're on this planet for a reason. People need to know you're here and people need to hear from you.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're closed off because of what's being told to you in that pulpit or an interpretation of what's being told to you in that pulpit, and not all pulpits are bad. I believe there's some really good, beautiful people that go to church and that are really here to make a difference. Okay.
Oh, I have.
However, I do feel like sometimes the people or the representation of the character of Christ is not what I believe, this is just my opinion, I believe the way he would want it to be portrayed.
I agree.
Hmm.
I absolutely agree. Um, and it's very hard to kind of have these conversations with people because, again, they are very, very close-minded.
Hmm.
And they don't want to hear another point of view. It's, this is what I think. This is how, either how I was raised or how I interpret the Bible or what my church, what my pastor, what whoever says. And this is law. And whatever you have to say is just wrong. Um, so I tend not to argue with those people. I just, meet them where they're at and say, okay, you know,
Yeah.
respect that they believe what they believe. And, you're not going to change what I believe.
Right.
So how can we move forward with, just a mutual respect?
Right.
But with that being said, I don't allow everyone to pray for me.
Hmm.
So,
I
because
learned that lesson too.
yes, and I was just going to ask, do you allow people to pray for you? I don't, because to me, especially if, you're very heavily religious, whether it be, Christian, Jehovah's Witness, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you're praying that I follow your path.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to follow your path. I believe my path is the right path for me, just like
Mm-hmm.
your path is the right path for you. So you're
Mm-hmm.
actually going against what I want and my spiritual beliefs, and that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you navigate that?
As you asked me that, I was thinking, when is the last time I had let somebody pray for me? And I had a memory come up, and it was last year. And the woman and I had a continuous dialogue. She was a customer that used to come into one of the a big beauty company I worked for. And we would just talk beauty products. And what's your favorite? Well, what's your favorite? Well, I like this and I like this. Well, she came down with um ill, she got ill. And the next time she came in, she you could just tell it was just something going on. Her whole aura was not as illuminated as it was before. And she and I got to talking, and she's just like, how is everything going with you? I said, yeah, it's going. I'm good. Life be life in some time, but whatever. And she said, can I pray for you? And I would admit to you, my first inclination was fear. And I was just like, hmm. And she said, you don't have to believe like I believe. I just, I just, I'm in this spot that I'm in right now. And I feel like because I'm dealing with stuff, it helps me to focus on other people. And I allowed her to pray for me. And she said the most beautiful, most unlike, it was a different kind of prayer. Like she said, Jesus, amen, and all that, but it was mainly, she spoke a blessing in her
Yes.
prayer. And it was good for me to hear it. And it was reassuring that, okay, there are people that don't have an agenda to evangelize you in a prayer
Yes.
out there. And that was the last time. But normally, because of just things that I have experienced and the trauma that I'm still working through with you mentioned religious abuse and religious hurt, I don't typically. But that was that time, and I can't remember how long it was before then.
Yeah, I completely
Yeah.
agree. As a matter of fact, in my daily prayer for protection, I
Hmm.
just ask that anything that does not align with my highest good that anyone speaks over me does not
Hmm.
stick. It is returned to source and neutralized with love. I
Hmm.
only want prayers that align with my journey and what is meant for my highest and greatest good. And I just
Exactly.
keep it because really you never know what someone is praying over your life.
No.
Even if they have the utmost best intentions for you,
Hmm.
you just really never know.
You don't. You don't. And there's a lot. We could talk about that in two or three other episodes. So
Right?
I'm
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to go back to when you said you met the divine, because I also believe that I
hmm.
had an encounter with God.
Hmm.
And I realized that I thought I could tell people, especially, not every, I have a lot of friends that
Hmm.
has a lot of different walks of life. Um,
I think that's
and
beautiful.
thank you.
Mhm.
Because to me, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're Jehovah's Witness, atheist, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist.
Mhm.
I don't care. Are you a
Mhm.
good person? That's what I
Right,
care.
right.
So I thought that I could tell my, Christian friends, and because who better to tell that, hey, I've had this encounter with God than
Mhm.
my Christian friends, right?
Right.
No, not at all. Of course, they highly doubted. And I think it's because I'm not Christian. They know this. I'm very spiritual. I think it came from a place of, well, why would he come to you when you're not doing the right thing?
Right.
Because even though, yes, we're friends, obviously they still have their beliefs. They don't force them on me, very respectfully, because again, we have a mutual respect. But, obviously everyone has their own thoughts and ideas. So I think it was interesting because it's like, I know for a fact, it's the energy that I felt when I encountered God is a love like no other. And I think people use the word love and feel love, but they have no idea until they've felt God's love. Like that is on a whole nother level, a whole nother vibration. You cannot recreate that at all. So, what was it like for you? Because you mentioned seeing love. So, what was it like for you when you encountered the divine?
It was light. It was all light. It was warmth. Um, in fact, I'll tell you, when I had the encounter, I was sloppy drunk, sloppy drunk in my apartment, and I just fell apart. Like when I tell you the divine came into my apartment, that's what it felt like. Because I was crying out because I was, at the time I didn't know I was struggling with depression and a few other mental health things, but I cried. I cried out. It was one thing that my deceased mother told me, don't be afraid to cry out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I did. And I will just tell you, it was just light in my apartment and it was warmth. I felt held. I felt understood. I felt like I was the only person on this planet in that encounter. And I felt seen and understood. And I couldn't even, you ever gotten to that ugly cry where you can't even get the words out?
Yep.
That's the kind of cry I was in. And I was met in that. Many of us don't have the capacity to do that
Yep.
for somebody. Okay. That I knew. I said, okay, this is real. Um, the other time that I can think of vividly having the encounter was when I was sick. And like for a year and a half, and this is during the pandemic, you know, it was crazy during the pandemic. And I had exhausted all these resources of, the doctors, and I was going down the holistic road and functional doctors and just all these different things. And I had gotten exhausted and weak because, my life, I couldn't function. Lyme disease, people die from it.
Yeah.
And I remember being in my house at the time and I had a hard time standing up and I put my back to my washer and dryer and I slid down the front of it and I was crying like that again. And the only thing I could get out of my mouth was, please help me. I can't do this. I can't take this anymore. I need you to help me, show me where to go. I had that same encounter again.
Yeah.
And after each of those encounters, I would have tangible things begin to happen. Like, I heard you. I heard you. Like, I'm going to show you I heard you and I care. I've had it again. Even as a living out loud, lesbian, queer Black woman living in the South, in the low country of the South, I have seen God show up. Yet again, I haven't changed my mind. My love for you, I don't care what they're telling you.
Yep.
Nothing's changed. You focus here.
Yep. And I absolutely believe that and love that, especially because similarly, that's when God showed up for me. I
Mhm.
was crying. I was, depressed. I was ready to, trigger warning, yeet myself off this earth.
Listen, I forgot that part too. That too.
I
Yes.
listen, I was done. I was
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
Take me now, Lord. Take me now.
Yes. Yeah.
And he basically said, no,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not. I
Mm-mm.
didn't, I felt the energy. I felt the love, and I
Mm-hmm.
calmed down and I was able to fall asleep. And in that sleep, that's when I believe God came to me,
Mm-hmm.
in more physical form. Because
Mm-hmm.
I dreamt of a man, and he came to me and he handed me bread with
Mm-hmm.
honey on it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read your Bible, that is
Mm-hmm.
in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was like, yes, this was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely a divine encounter. And he was
Mm-hmm.
letting me know he has me. He's feeding, literally
Mm-hmm.
feeding me, and everything is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And although it may not have looked like, instantaneous, gratification, everything is okay.
Yeah.
Everything is fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, even though we're, very different stories, we have that same similar of being like, we are like, we're done. And
Right. Like if you don't show up, I'm about to just check on out.
right, we gonna meet you up there.
Right. Right.
We gonna see each other one way or another.
Right. Right. And it is reassuring. Again, I'm with you. I've never left you. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm here. You've gotten various forms of me in different places. I don't discount my journey. And it is not something that I'm ashamed of. It just has been this evolvement into, okay, you've been here. This is where I want you.
And the journey isn't over.
And
The
it's
journey
not.
is not over.
No.
And it's going to continue to change and evolve. And, you may not know where you're going at one point, but
Mhm.
you're always, on the right path
Yes.
as
And
long as
that's
you're
that's
focused.
the bottom line. We're always on the right path. Because it always leads to something greater and something that may look different. Like you said, you may not know. And there have been times where I'm like, what in the world?
Mhm. Like,
You
what is
know?
happening?
Right. Exactly.
So let's talk about those challenges a little bit. Like, what
Hmm.
advice would you give to people kind of currently going through some things and they don't know where they're going and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Hmm.
What advice would you kind of give to them based on your journey and where you've been?
My advice is rest.
Yes.
And that is very hard to do if you are a person that is driven. And I'm speaking of myself, very driven, very task oriented, doesn't mind having a busy schedule. But the clarity is in the calm and the peace.
Absolutely.
And there have been more things that I have become made aware of and shown and given direction and clarity on when I was able to just sit
Mm-hmm.
and get quiet and just wait. That's the hardest part. Wait.
Have patience.
Yeah, have patience
Wait.
and just wait and commune with nature. One of my favorite things right now is to sit on my front porch in the morning. It's crazy hot and the mosquitoes are vicious down here. So, sometimes it's sitting in my living room looking out the window.
Oh, yeah.
But getting in that stillness, I sit there sometimes, and me and my wife are sitting there, and we may not even be talking. We're just watching and just sitting with the expectation of it'll come to me when it's time. Gotta
Absolutely.
quiet the noise. There's so much competing for our eyes and ears right now. And it's just better to just get quiet.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I start my day with, of
Mhm.
course, my prayers and
Mhm.
then meditation and some affirmation.
Likewise. Hmm.
And if I do not start with at least my prayers and my meditation, my day is just,
Hmm. It
it
makes a difference.
it makes a difference. I have to bring that quiet and that
Hmm.
stillness into my day from the beginning
Hmm.
instead of chasing it throughout the day.
Right. Right.
Do you ever feel like you're kind of chasing that quiet, that stillness, or do you feel like you've kind of mastered that at this point?
I feel like that, yes and no. Some days I feel like I am chasing it a little bit. Just because maybe my morning didn't quite go the way I wanted it to. But excuse me, I will say that I feel like I have mastered when you get the first thing I do when I wake up is, thank you God for keeping us through the night. And I say us because my wife still sleeps. Or God, thank you for another morning. I do that every day. And sometimes I say God, sometimes I say source, sometimes I say great divine. They know who I'm talking to.
Mm.
Sometimes I say thank you, spirit, whatever. Um, and then, I have a brain that starts rolling as soon
Yes.
as my eyes open,
Mm.
right? So I have to like literally put my earbuds in, get some meditative music on, and get right to it so that I can get this to be quiet.
Yes.
I think that is the biggest hurdle, but I have been meditating now regularly for about 3 years.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And it helps. It really, I don't care if it's 5 minutes.
Hmm.
It just gets you centered and focused because the noise is going to be there.
Exactly. It's going to be there regardless. And
Mhm,
I think for me, I've mastered knowing when I need to have
mhm,
that quiet, not necessarily doing it all the time like I should.
mhm,
So if my energy is a little weird and, I've mastered knowing, okay, this is what I need right now,
mhm,
and
mhm,
taking the time to, maybe step away from my desk or whatever for 5 minutes, go
mhm.
outside, touch some grass,
Yeah.
whatever, just to come back to me. I think it's an ongoing process.
Yes.
And as we evolve, I think our process and the way that we, get that quiet and that stillness will also evolve.
Mhm.
So, do you have any like practical tips that you can share with people who are just starting or who are evolving on their journey?
So for me, when I was just starting, it started with just affirmations. I wasn't meditating. It was me finding something on YouTube and like repeating it out loud in the morning. Or, if my energy was off or I just wasn't feeling good, repeating it back in my head. And sometimes it was just, no, you're just gonna take this in. You're gonna let this wash over you today. It finds something that you gravitate towards that can hold your attention for those few minutes, whether it's listening to some, like you have beautiful affirmations,
No, thank you.
Carla. That's a great way to start your day. If you're beginning, or if you're starting to meditate and you're worried about, your brain, like I told you, as soon as my eyes open, it's like, right? 5 minutes. 5 minutes, find something to listen to. Okay, if you are, because we talked about the diversity of people, let's say you are a person of faith and you're a Christian. And I used to do this a lot when I was in ministry. You get up, I'm doing the same thing, it just looks different. Okay. You go outside, and I used to just listen to worship music. And every day it looked different. Sometimes I would go into prayer, sometimes I would go into worship. Sometimes I would just be in my Bible and that music was there. Um, it was something to ground me and help me meditate on the things that were good about me because it's very easy. This world around us, especially things right now, there's so much negativity in the air, and you have to remember who you are. You
Yes.
have to remember who you are because the world is going to tell you everything that you're not or what they want you to be or what they think you should be doing because they're doing it. Find 5 minutes. I don't care if it's binaural beats,
Hmm.
something. Go take a walk, walk around your yard, walk down the street. I wish I lived closer to the beach. I am on the coast, but we're more inland. but I can get to the beach in like 25 minutes, right? Go take a walk on the beach or walk in the grass, barefooted, something that is going to get you in tuned back to the earth, something that's going to get you in tune back to who you are because you are beautiful. You are a beautiful soul, okay? And I don't care what people have said and told you. They all they're trying to do is crush the divinity that's already in you. And that is not something small, it's very big.
Yep.
It is very big. And however you need to, everything I listed, if you could only do 5 minutes, if you're a mom and you got 5 children, then 5 minutes. I don't care. Box breathing, that's another thing. I forgot about that. Box breathing. Our breath, I'm gonna tell you something. Our breath is an indicator that you are supposed to be here because guess what? You don't have to think about it. It just is there.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that. So, wrapping up, what is next for you?
Okay. What is next for me? So I have some things coming up for Oasis this month that I'm working on. Don't want to give all the juicy details yet, but I'm sure we can.
Yeah, just
When
share
y'all
with me.
follow me, y'all can see all of it. But yeah, working on those things for Oasis, and then a big project that I have been working on for a number of years now. I'm really going to be working on finishing my memoir. Uh, Trying to get that done this year. It's time.
It is.
Uh, it's been time. I started writing that book in 2019. It was right just before the pandemic, and I was going to write the book under the Christian sector. And then I got sick, and things began to shift, and
Mhm.
lessons needed to be learned, experiences needed to be had. And so it's a lot different than the way it originally was. So that is my baby right now.
Awesome. And I'd love to have you back once it's all done and written to promote the book and, have people get interested in reading about your life and your memoir because it's definite. I can tell from our conversation today, it's going to be
Thank
something.
you.
It's definitely
Thank
going
you.
to be something.
I really hope so. I really hope people read it and they get encouraged. And I hope people read it and it's a voice that maybe, or words that they couldn't speak, and it encourages them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And before I let you go, just one question that I ask all my guests. What does a
Mhm.
magical moment look like for you?
Ooh, that's a good one. A magical moment for me looks like looking around and hearing the birds, hearing the wind in the trees, maybe hearing the occasional car go by on my country road, uh, hearing water, to be able to hear the elements and hear the symphony in the elements.
Yes.
When you hear the symphony and your heart gets attuned to the symphony going on in the elements, I will tell you then everything is going to be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure and an honor having you here. I'm
Yeah.
so glad. Catch Natalia. I'll put all of her information in a description box so you can check her out and just see everything she has going on, all the things she shared, and all the things she can't share just yet, but are upcoming and exciting, I'm sure. So check us out and check me out on my next episode. And as always, start with gratitude, end with love, and find your magical moment. And I'll see you next time.